All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Good to see you. And I'm going to be answering a question that was sent to me on Twitter, X, and it was submitted here by Jeff. And the question was, is there a way to ignore parameters that are passed into a Xano query in the Xano Connector? So Xano Connector is a plugin that I've built that makes it much simpler to connect Bubble to Xano as a backend. And the Xano query is an element that's used to retrieve data out of your Xano database. And also, ultimately, the question comes down to, in Bubble, when you do a search, for whatever data type that you're searching, there's a checkbox that can be ticked that says ignore empty parameters, right? So this lets you set up filters, and you can tell Bubble, hey, filter this search by all these values, but if any one of these is not doesn't have a value, then just ignore it. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to set this up in Xano. We'll set this up in Bubble, and just kind of show you how this works when you're using a Bubble Xano stack versus just Bubble only. And really, it kind of going to be a lot of a Xano tutorial, and we're going to go to a couple other things on setting up, your pagination and some other kind of cool things you can do when you're returning data from Xano. So we're going to go ahead and dive on in, and let's look at our Xano database. So here we have a table in this Bubble demo instance that I have on Xano, and simply called customer. So and I've used this, by the way, if you need data. There's this cool Makaru service called Makaru that you can generate data for, and I've essentially generated 1,000 records of kind of a sample customer with company name. And so you can kind of see here with first name, last name, emails, phone, address, etc. So really what we're going to be working with here is we're going to assume we want a customer's name, company name, and the state, and then we're going to filter it down by state. So the big difference here between Bubble and Xano is that in Bubble, this setting up these searches and ignoring parameters and all that feels like a front-end task, right? Because we do it directly in the Bubble editor on the front end. However, it's ultimately it is a back-end setup, and the difference when you're using Xano as your back end is that you're going to set this up inside Xano, not inside your Bubble editor. So let's go ahead and build out a little bit of UI here. So I have an aligned to parent page here, and I'm just going to grab, let's grab column group here. We'll just grab it with padding. We'll add that to the page, and let's pop that to the top, and let's give it a max width of 1,000. And let's also bump that down from the top of the page by 50 pixels. Okay, so the reason I have the page set to align to parent is so that we can add other elements. We're going to be using plugin elements and everything on this page. It makes it really easy if you set your page to align to parent and then actually put your content inside a group on that page, so that you have places to put plugin elements, because Bubble really relies, especially if you're using a lot of plugins, it's much easier to do that than kind of create all these pop-ups or floating groups to put your elements in. So we're just going to go ahead and let's grab an H3 here. We'll add that in. We'll just call this customers. And let's add, we're going to add a 2-column container so we can throw some filters in here, and then let's also grab let's grab a table here to put in here as well. All right, and I put that inside the wrong group, so we'll just copy, click back on the group we want, and drop it here. Okay, perfect. So we can get rid of this top thing since we're already kind of rebuilding that out. And actually, you know what? I don't want the users table. What I want is just the actual, just standard repeating group table. All right, perfect. That is what we want right there. And so let's go ahead and set up some filters here. So I'm going to add an input here inside this first layout, and that's going to be a search. And we're going to do this as well. Let's just grab another form input with an icon. Both of these will give them a search icon. And this will allow us to search by actually, we'll do by company name and by the company state. So we'll do search, and then let's just give this input of search company. Let's change our input name. Let's say search company here as well. And we're going to say search by state. And let's rename this to search state. Okay, so we've got our kind of core layout here, and for actually retrieving this data from Xano. So we're gonna go by this, do this step by step. So we're gonna go ahead and grab a Xano query element, if I can spell this correctly, and we're gonna drop it right up here in the top left-hand corner. And so we have a couple things we need to set up here, which we do not have yet. So let's jump into Xano, and we're gonna add an API endpoint. I have an API group here just for this demo. We're gonna hit add API endpoint, and let's just say start from scratch. So let's call this, we'll just call this customers. That's all we need. We don't need to add authentication. Generally you would if this is protected data, but for what we're doing today, we're not going to be working with authentication. All this is all about filtering and sorting your data. So, and then we're going to add a simple query here. We'll use the query all records. We're going to say we want to query the customer, and we're not going to filter that out at all. Let's just set our output here to customers. We'll save this, update this reference. That's just saying that what we're returning here in the response was referencing that variable name, and so it went ahead and updated that automatically. So, all right, let's run this and just make sure we're getting some data back. And we are, but we have 1,000 items, 1,000 records in this table, so we probably want to set up some pagination on this. So let's just go into our output on that query, and we'll go into return here, and let's just enable paging. So we'll say let's return 25 per, and let's return the total item count. Save that, save this, and then let's rerun. And perfect. So we have a paginated response here. You can see we've got 25 total items received. There's a total of 1,000 items. There's 40 total pages. And so let's go ahead and set this up in Bubble. So I'm going to copy this response that we just got. I'm going to go here into JSON formatter, paste this in, and then I'm just going to grab one of these objects so that we can set this data type up here in Bubble. So a lot of this is going to kind of assume you know how the Xano connector works, but we're going to go into some of it as well. So the Xano connector operates off of collections or JSON models that we set up here in the API connector. And you can see I already started setting this one up. Let's go ahead and delete that so we can go from scratch. And we're just going to call this Xano customer. And what we need to do is we just need to identify or define to Bubble that, not Xano Bubble, we need to define to Bubble that the response or the data that Bubble should be expecting. So we'll just add, call it Xano customer here, and then we're going to manually enter API response, and we'll just paste that JSON that we pulled in, hit save, and a really big thing you need to remember here is to always change this ID to a number. You're going to get expected number but got a string error if you don't, simply because that ID is always returned as a number by default. It's easier just to get in the habit of set up the ID as a number here in Bubble. We're going to change this to date Unix, and then we got the rest of this information that we need. So we have enough here that we can actually go ahead and go back into our design, and let's set our endpoint. So we're going to set our data type actually. Let's say customer, Xano customer, and then just to confirm what our endpoint is here. So it's just customers. And let's actually grab this group URL as well. And again, we're going to go pretty fast through some of this with the assumption that you kind of understand the core of how this plugin works. So we'll paste that group URL here, and then we're going to identify this endpoint as, or define it as customers. And we haven't set up any parameters. We don't need to do anything like that at this point. We will get there then. But now let's go ahead into our repeating group. So we'll select the cell, grab the repeating group here. And by default, it's set to frames user dummy data, but we're going to clear that out. We're going to set the type of content here to Xano customer, and then this. So we have the Xano query element that we put here, and let's just go ahead and name that customers to make it easy to reference. Let's grab our first parent again, and we're going to do Xano query customers, and we're going to grab the data here. Okay, so if we run this, we preview this, which we're going to go ahead and do now. We'll drop this into our folder so we've got nice and clean here. Oh, so we did not return anything because we did not actually publish our endpoint here. So let's publish this. It's looking for it, but it's not going to find it until we actually tell Xano we want this to be published to the live version. So let's go back over here to our Xano connector, and now you can see, okay, so we have a bunch of data here. We didn't actually tie our text into it. So let's do that real quick. And we're going to go ahead and set this inner group as current sales Xano customer, change the type of content. Let's do that here as well. Parent group Xano customer. We'll do that on through all three of these groups. All right. Perfect. Okay, and then we're just going to go left to right here, and we will set this one to, we'll set it to the first name of the user or the customer. We'll just say name. Let's grab this one. We will set this text to the company name. So we'll do parent group Xano customers company name. And then we'll set our placeholder as company. And then this final one, let's just give it, let's reference the state. We'll show the state here. And we'll say state. Okay, so if we go back into the front end, refresh this page. All right, so refresh, now we can see we got, customer first name, we got company name, and we got the state of these customers. But you can see if we type, in here, we're not going to get any kind of filtering. It doesn't matter. We just simply haven't, set that up. So let's go ahead and set that up. We'll start in Xano, and then we'll move back into Bubble and finish it up. All right, so over here in Xano, let's go ahead and add two inputs. The first one will be company. We'll just call it company. We could call it company name. And let's do state. So these are going to be values that we pass in. So this is similar to saying, you know, if you're in, just jump back into Bubble here real quick. And we'll grab this repeating group. And let's just jump back over here into a condition to kind of show. So data source, right? Generally, if we were going to look for customers, we'd do a search for, and then we would say, you know, grab the customer data type, and so we'd, you know, add a constraint and then say company name, right? So company name contains, and then we would say input search company name value, right? So this is what we would do here. In Xano, we're essentially doing the same thing by setting these inputs. We're defining those constraints. We're saying, hey, we're going to take in a value for company, we're going to take in a value for state, and then we're going to do something with this. So what we want to do is just go ahead. We're going to click on the query all records, and then we're going to say by custom query here. We're going to do a drop down, and let's just say customer company name. So customer is the table, and then company name, and then we'll say equals, let's go to an input, and we're going to say company. And then we'll say and customer state, we'll say equals, and we'll grab that input for state. So we hit save, and then run this. Let's see, we're going to get nothing back, right? So we have company, we have state, and what's happening is that this query is expecting data in both of those inputs. So there's no company that equals nothing or equals an empty string. There's no state that equals an empty string, so it's just returning nothing to us. So the first step here to just tell Xano, hey, if there's nothing here, ignore it, is we'll just go back in here to the custom query, and we're just going to click ignore empty values, ignore empty values. Now, one of the nice things here, as an, you know, versus Bubble, is that we can set up, we can define different parameters. So whereas Bubble, you're going to have to say ignore empty constraints, you know, for your entire search. Here we can say, we could say, hey, we want to require a state value, and if they don't put a state in, then don't return anything. And we only want to ignore the company name filter if there's no value there. And so you can define that, you know, directly on these individual levels. For what we're doing today, we want to ignore both of these, and so we can hit save, and now if we rerun this, you can see we get the exact same result as we have been getting. So 25 total for this page, 1,000 items total, 40 pages total. Okay, so what happens though? Let's just say we put something here in state, and we're going to say Ohio. So we're going to search by Ohio, and we rerun this, and we get nothing back. So what we want to do is we want to actually start normalizing some of this data and how it might be put in and what we're looking for. So the first thing we want to do is just go into our inputs, and we're going to add another configuration on this input and say on this input, whatever is sent, let's just go to lower. Let's so this will take, it doesn't matter what's sent, it will take everything that's sent in this input and make it lowercase. And so this helps us, you know, we don't know how a user is going to, you know, input some values on the front end. So they might, you know, spell Ohio all caps. They might spell Ohio with capital first letter, you know, lowercase letters. Might be all lowercase. This is just a way of normalizing, taking whatever they put in and normalizing it by making it all lowercase. We're going to do the same thing here for state then. Just configure this input, and we'll say lower, save, and let's rerun this. All right, now we still don't get anything here on with this, even with this lowercase state. So the reason is that we also need to normalize then what's in our database. Now we could go through the database and normalize it, or we can also just go straight here into our query, and we're going to do the exact same thing. So we're going to say customer.company name. Now here it's going to be called toLower. We'll update that. We're going to do this on the state as well. And so now what's happening here is we're taking actually the values in our database and we're manipulating them before we try to match them. So we're already normalized the values that are coming in on both company and state. And now we're saying, okay, take the customer company name and match it as a lowercase value to the values that are coming in on our input. So we'll save this. Now if we run this, we're going to get values back, because we've now matched Ohio. And it doesn't matter, how we do this. We can do a capital O, hit rerun, and we're still going to get same values, 35 total, 25 on this first page. We can do it all caps, and it doesn't matter. We're getting the same response, right? So now we're kind of protecting against and normalizing what users might put in and matching this on a one-to-one basis. But maybe we say, we want to do like partial matches. Like we want someone to be able to type in OH and still get the values back. Well, we're not going to be able to do that with the way our query is set up right now. So let's dive back into our query. We're going to open this back up. And then let's change this, and we'll use the like on both of these. So it's going to say if, oops, not the like, we're going to use includes, sorry. We'll use includes. And so this will essentially say if the customer company name includes what was sent, includes the characters that were sent in this input, then return it. Same for customer state. So if we save, and then rerun, now we're getting that back again. So we have Ohio. We're just doing OH, and so it's basically saying all these customers with Ohio in their name do have OH. We could do just hi. We'll probably get some additional ones here as well. Yeah, you can see we got total items of 63, which means we're getting some additional states. So we got Michigan, right? Because Michigan has HI in it. We have Washington. Washington has HI in it. And so you can see we can start getting this really kind of powerful search that takes what the user enters and gives them really, kind of maximize what's sent back or minimize what is sent back, but we're doing it all via very normalized data. Let's go ahead and publish this, and we'll show what this looks like on to set this up on the bubble side. So we have two inputs. We have text we have company and state. And so I'm just going to copy what we have right here in the inputs that we're sending. Just copy that JSON. Let's go over to, oops, went the wrong way here. Let's go over to bubble. And we're going to go into this. And let's go ahead. Let's remove this condition. We don't want that on that table. So let's go into our Xano query. We're just going to paste this JSON directly into our parameters. So this is simply saying we're going to pass company and state. This is how we pass that data to the endpoint. And here on company, we're going to remove those double quotes. And we're going to say this is going to have a value of input search company value. And then we're going to use the format as JSON safe. And this just basically takes, again, we're kind of, we don't know what kind of data or what a user is going to put into a free text input like this, right? So it's very possible they're going to put something in there that's going to break our JSON. And so this just simply says, take it, make it safe to send via JSON through this endpoint. And part of that will then also, just if there's nothing there, it'll send just a null value through, and so that will go through as well. We're going to do the same thing here. We're going to grab input search state value, and then we'll do format as JSON safe. So now if we preview this, and we'll go ahead and search by state. So you can see we got basically the same thing that we had gotten before. But if we search for Ohio, now we get just Ohio. We can search text for Texas. We can search Carolina for, and we will get North Carolina and South Carolina in that. And then we can say, let's just search for this idle company, and we'll say idle. And now we're getting, just this company and the one that is in this state. So if we preface this with South, then we're not going to get anything back, right? So we don't have an empty state set up there, but now we're getting all our South Carolina. So that's how we would set up, right? That's how you're going to set up those null values is we're going to set it up in the Xano side to manage them, and check against whether they exist or not. On the Bubble side, we're just going to say send this value, right? Format it as a JSON safe value, but we don't actually do anything different from the Bubble side as far as what we send. We're just gonna, if we have the value, we'll send it. If we don't, we don't. And we don't control whether that's ignored or not from the front end. We control whether it's ignored or not from the back end. Hopefully that helps. So we're at about 30 minutes, so I'm going to leave that there. I'll make some more around this as far as sorting and all that, but that gives you the, I think, a sufficient place to get started in how to actually filter down your data from Xano and bring it back in a Xano query. So cheers, guys.